It started with a glance. Isn't that how these things always do? We were at a friend's housewarming party. Our friend, technically, but more mine than hers. The place was packed. Warm from too many bodies crammed into a downtown apartment that wasn't built for this many people. There were fairy lights strung along the windows and a Bluetooth speaker pumping out a playlist that tried too hard to be casual. Laughter, music, red plastic cups. The kind of background noise that helps you ignore what's really going on. But I noticed everything. Megan had been standing across the room talking to a group of coworkers. That wasn't unusual. She'd recently joined a new firm and had been talking about them nonstop, especially about one of them, a guy named Tyler. I remembered his name because she said it with a certain tone. Harmless, dismissive, like she was going out of her way to make it sound unimportant. I'd never met him before, not officially, but I knew exactly who he was the moment I walked in. He was tall, with the kind of posture that came from a gym membership and a job that didn't require sitting behind a desk for hours. Megan smiled when she saw me, but it was quick, distracted. She turned back toward him before I even made it across the room. It was subtle. If you weren't looking, you'd miss it. But I was looking. I found a drink, made some small talk with people I didn't care about, kept an eye on her without making it obvious. I wasn't the jealous type. I never had been. But something about the way she leaned in toward him, the way her fingers grazed his arm when she laughed. It was too familiar, too rehearsed. She didn't pull away when he placed a hand on her waist. Not right away. That hand stayed there, comfortable like it had been there before. I saw it plain as day, and she saw me see it. And still, she didn't move. I remember feeling something twist in my stomach, something cold and electric. I looked away, down the rest of my drink. I told myself I was overreacting, that I needed to trust her, that it wasn't what it looked like, but it was. Half an hour later, I watched them dance. There wasn't really a dance floor, just an open space near the kitchen that people used to sway to whatever song was playing. It wasn't anything formal, but the way she moved with him, it was choreographed in its int asterisk Macy. He placed his hands on her hips like it was second nature. She looked up at him with a smile I hadn't seen in months. One that reached her eyes. That was the part that cut the deepest. She used to smile at me like that. I stood there, frozen, pretending to scroll through my phone while watching my wife let another man hold her like that in front of a room full of people. Not one person said anything. Not one person looked shocked. Because to them, maybe this wasn't surprising. Maybe this had been happening for longer than I wanted to believe. When the song ended, she stayed close to him, too close. He said something in her ear, and she laughed again, touching his chest before finally walking back toward me like nothing had happened. Like it was all just part of the evening. She kissed me on the cheek. Quick, dry gesture. Not affection, performance. Having fun? She asked. I nodded, unsure if my voice would betray me. You seemed pretty cozy with your work, buddy, I said, keeping my tone light, testing the waters. She rolled her eyes. Come on, Andrew. It's just Tyler. We were dancing. Don't be weird. His hand was on you the entire time. She shrugged. It's called dancing. You've heard of it, right? The way she said it, dismissive, defensive, made something inside me snap. Just a little. I didn't say anything else. What was the point? If she was going to lie, she wasn't going to stop now. Not when the lie was easier than the truth. But something shifted in me that night. Something quiet and permanent. The ride home was mostly silent. She played with her phone, texting someone. Maybe him, maybe not. And I just stared out the window trying to convince myself this wasn't happening. That I hadn't seen what I'd seen. That I was reading too much into it, letting paranoia get the better of me. But deep down I already knew. Because that wasn't the first time I'd felt this way. And it wouldn't be the last. When we got home, she went straight upstairs, muttering something about being exhausted. I lingered in the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water I didn't drink, and leaned against the counter, staring at the empty sink like it held answers. I replayed the night in my head, frame by frame. The way she smiled at him, the way she touched him, the way he touched her, like it was normal, like it was allowed. I thought about asking her again, about pushing harder. But something about her reaction earlier told me it wouldn't matter. She'd already decided what version of the story she wanted to believe, and she expected me to believe it too. Just a dance, she'd said. But I'd seen the way she looked at him, the way she leaned into his touch like it was familiar, the way she let herself be seen with him, as if she didn't care who noticed, including me, especially me. That was the part one couldn't get past. She knew I saw, and she did it anyway. I stood there in the dark kitchen for a long time, listening to the muffled sounds of her moving around upstairs. The creak of our bedroom door, the rustle of bedsheets. Familiar sounds in a house that no longer felt like home. Eventually, I followed her up, undressed in the bathroom, and slid into bed without a word. She was already turned away from me, her back rigid beneath the covers. I didn't touch her. She didn't touch me. And somewhere in that silence, I realized this wasn't the beginning of a problem. It was the middle of one I hadn't wanted to face. That night after the party, I barely slept. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail of what I saw like it was a movie I didn't want to watch but couldn't look away from. The soft rise and fall of Megan's breathing beside me should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like a stranger was sleeping in our bed. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things, that maybe I was reading too far into something meaningless, that I was insecure. But deep down, I wasn't confused. I was starting to wake up. It wasn't just the way she let him touch her or the way she smiled when she thought I wasn't watching. It was everything before that, the small shifts I had tried so hard to ignore because acknowledging them meant accepting something I didn't want to be true. I kept a mental list. She had started working late more often, at first once or twice a week, then 3 times, sometimes more. At first she'd text, apologize, say things ran over or a client was demanding. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? But then the texts stopped sounding like her. They became generic, cold, mechanical, running late, don't wait up. Meeting went long, we'll be home after 10. No warmth, no explanation, no emojis, just statements. And she'd come home with this glow, like adrenaline still in her skin. Flushed cheeks, lipstick reapplied. Her scent always lingered a little too long. She'd say she was exhausted, barely eat, and disappear into a long shower before curling into bed with her back to me. It didn't feel like my wife was coming home. It felt like someone else was returning to our house wearing her face. And I know how that sounds. Paranoid, desperate. But when you live with someone long enough, you know the details. You notice the micro changes. The new perfume she hadn't worn before. The travel-sized dry shampoo in her purse when she'd never cared for that stuff. The upgraded cosmetics. A bold red lipstick she'd said once she wasn't confident enough to wear. Now it lived in her handbag. One afternoon a few weeks before the party, I had gotten home early and gone to put away some laundry. I passed by the bathroom and noticed something that made me stop cold. The cabinet under the sink had been locked. We'd never locked it before. There was nothing in there that needed to be. When I asked her later, she barely blinked. Said she accidentally broke the latch and it locked by itself now. I tested that latch the next day. It wasn't broken. She'd locked it. Deliberately. I started watching more carefully after that. Not just her movements, but her patterns. Her language. Her energy. She started taking her phone with her everywhere. Bathroom, shower, laundry room. If it buzzed while she wasn't in the room, she'd race to it. Flip it over. Turn off notifications altogether. She changed her passcode. Said her phone had been acting weird, and she wanted to be cautious. We used to joke that we had no secrets, that her phone was my phone. We used to share passwords, calendars, everything. But now I was locked out, literally and metaphorically. Even her social media started shifting. Posts about us became rare. Where she used to tag me in goofy memes or little, I love my husband stories. Now it was just solo selfies. *TS from work. Cryptic quotes about finding yourself. Once I asked, half joking, "Hey, am I still allowed to be seen with you online?" She laughed, but she didn't answer. That silence said enough. I remembered a Saturday morning not long before the party. She had gotten a call while we were making breakfast. She stepped out onto the balcony, even though it was freezing cold, and talked in a hushed voice for 10, maybe 15 minutes. When she came back in, I asked who it was. She told me it was her sister. Megan doesn't have a sister. That one hit me like a gut punch. I didn't call her out on it. I wanted to, but I just stared at her as she stirred her coffee like nothing had happened. And she stared back like I was the crazy one. I don't know what held me back in that moment. Denial, maybe, or fear that if I asked the question out loud, "Are you cheating on me?" it would make it real. I wasn't ready for real. But that party changed something. Seeing her like that, with him, shattered the thin wall I'd built between suspicion and certainty. I could no longer hide behind the excuse of maybe. There was no maybe anymore. The signs were everywhere, stacked like dominoes. And all it took was one touch. His hand on her waist, hers lingering on his, to knock them all down. In the days that followed, I started paying closer attention. Not just to her, but to how I felt around her. I didn't feel married anymore. We still lived under the same roof. Still shared the same meals when she was home. Still exchanged the same pleasantries. "How was your day?" "Fine." "Need anything from the store?" "No, I'm good." But none of it felt like us. She avoided my eyes during dinner. Her laugh came too easily around her phone and too rarely when I spoke. Her touch, once instinctive and full of affection, had been replaced with quick pats, awkward hugs, and the kind of goodbye kiss you'd give a colleague after a staff party. The int asterisk Macy was gone. Not just physical, but emotional. She was retreating into herself, and I wasn't invited inside anymore. At night, I'd lie awake next to her, wondering where she really was. And sometimes I'd catch her on her phone, back turned to me, thumbs moving quickly in the dim light, screen tilted just enough that I couldn't see. Once, she got a message at 2:18 a.m. Her phone buzzed once, and I heard her inhale sharply. She didn't move at first. Then slowly, quietly, she reached over, grabbed it, and slid out of bed. She went into the hallway, shut the door behind her. She was gone for 15 minutes. I didn't ask where she went. I didn't need to. And here's the worst part. I think she was waiting for me to say something. I think she wanted me to call her out, to make the first move, to break the illusion. Because the longer I stayed silent, the longer she could tell herself she wasn't really doing anything wrong. After all, if I wasn't accusing her, maybe there was still a chance she could pretend this was salvageable. But I couldn't be the one to break it. Not yet. Instead, I withdrew. I started working later, too. Coming home after dinner, eating in silence, and retreating to the spare bedroom under the excuse of not wanting to wake her with emails. Truthfully, I just didn't want to be in that bed anymore. It smelled like lies. She barely noticed. Or maybe she did. One night, while I was brushing my teeth, she appeared in the doorway. "You've been quiet lately," she said, voice soft. I looked at her through the mirror. "Just tired." She nodded like that explained everything. "Work's been brutal, huh?" Something like that. She lingered for a moment, then left. We didn't touch once that night. And just like that, another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. I was losing her. Scratch that, I had already lost her. And she was just waiting for me to realize it. I wasn't trying to find proof. Not that night. I wasn't even snooping. That's the part that still sticks with me. I didn't cross any boundaries. I didn't hack into anything. I didn't need to. All I did was glance. It was a Saturday. Megan was in the kitchen making coffee. Her phone buzzed on the couch next to me. Just a normal iMessage preview. Just a single line of text on a locked screen. But it changed everything. "Still can't stop thinking about your body against mine." That's it. No name. Just that one sentence, glowing up at me in blue and white. For a moment, my brain refused to register what I was reading. I blinked, looked again, half hoping it would vanish. That maybe I'd misread it, or it was from some group chat joke or misdirected spam. But it was real. And it didn't stop there. A second buzz. "Wish I'd kissed you. Should have kissed you." I didn't move. Didn't breathe. I just stared at her phone like it was a live grenade. She walked in moments later, holding 2 mugs, wearing an oversized hoodie that used to be mine. She handed me one without looking me in the eye. I took it, said nothing. My heartbeat drowned out everything else. Her phone buzzed again, right between us. She glanced at it, then at me, and for just a fraction of a second, she froze. She knew. I saw it in her eyes. That brief flicker of panic, followed by the fake casual smile she wore when she was cornered. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, just tired." She sat beside me, pulled her phone toward her like it might burn if I touched it. No password prompt. No Face ID. She picked it up like muscle memory, checked it, swiped the messages away, then smiled again, soft, innocent. "Want to go for a walk later?" she asked, like none of this had happened. I said sure, but something in me shifted in that moment, irreversibly. Until then, I'd been working off suspicion, gut feelings, pattern changes, emotional withdrawal. I'd seen enough to know something wasn't right, but a small part of me had still hoped I was wrong. Now I had confirmation, and it didn't come from a snooped inbox or a hired investigator. Came straight from him. From the man who couldn't help himself from texting her while she was 10 feet from me, pretending to be someone's wife. He still felt her body against his. He should have kissed her. There's no misreading that. I didn't confront her. Not then. Maybe I should have. Maybe that would have been more honest. But I wasn't angry, at least not in the explosive way I expected to be. I was something else. Cold. Detached. Like someone watching the collapse of a building they used to live in. I started replaying every interaction in our relationship through a different lens. Every moment that had felt off now came into sharp focus. The late nights. The locked bathroom cabinet. The new underwear I hadn't seen her wear at home. The fresh perfume. The untraceable smiles. The silence. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a drifting apart kind of affair. It wasn't born out of boredom or a bad patch or a single drunken lapse. It was orchestrated. It was intentional. And it was still happening. That was the part one couldn't stomach. That I was living in this house, sleeping next to her, making coffee with her in the mornings, while she was having an asterisk make conversations with another man who could barely wait to text her the second she left the room. I started noticing things more sharply after that. The next time she said she was staying late for work, I watched her leave from the upstairs window. 10 minutes later, I watched her car pass the turnoff for her office. She headed downtown instead. I didn't follow. I just stared at the empty road after she was gone, my hands trembling at the windowsill. That night, she came back with wet hair and a glowing face, like she'd just come from the gym. She told me she had a client dinner. I asked her how it went. She said, "Fine. A little boring. I think they're going to sign the deal though." I nodded. I didn't push, but I stopped believing anything she said. Eventually, I found myself doing things I never thought I'd do. Subtle things. I'd glance over her shoulder when she texted. I'd listen for the tone in her voice when she was talking in the next room. I didn't want to be that guy, the suspicious, insecure husband. But what choice did I have? I'd already been pushed out of the truth. The only way in now was through the cracks. One evening, when she left her laptop open on the kitchen counter, I took a chance. I wasn't even trying to snoop, I swear. But when I walked past, the screen lit up. There was an open tab, Google Photos. A shared folder labeled Conference NYC. At first glance, it looked innocent enough. Group sh*TS from a company offsite, drinks at a bar, the usual team-building junk. Then I saw him, Tyler, the same man from the party. Same tall frame, same smirk, same watch on his left wrist. In most of the photos, they were close, sometimes next to each other, sometimes angled toward one another, even in big group sh*TS. Their proximity stood out. But one photo stopped me cold. It was nighttime outside some rooftop bar. She was wearing a black coat I hadn't seen before. He had his arm draped loosely across her shoulders. She was leaning into him. Not awkwardly, not nervously, but comfortably. Naturally. Her face was turned toward him. And she was smiling. Not the smile she gave me when I kissed her goodbye in the morning. This was the real one. Unfiltered. Unburdened. Like she was exactly where she wanted to be. There were more photos like it. Candid selfies, her holding his drink, him with his hand on her lower back, her playfully tugging his tie. It was the same body language I'd seen at the party, but worse, bolder, like they didn't even try to hide it when they were out of town. In one photo, one I still can't forget, he was kissing her on the cheek, and her eyes were closed. She had saved them, all of them, in a folder on her personal laptop, right under my nose. I didn't touch anything. Didn't **T or forward or copy. I didn't need to. The images were burned into my mind. I closed the laptop, sat down on the couch, and stared at the wall for a long time. My heart wasn't racing. I wasn't shaking. I was numb. Whatever part of me had still been holding on to hope, that tiny voice saying, maybe it's not what it looks like, was finally gone. It was what it looked like. And worse, it had been going on for a long time. This wasn't emotional confusion. This wasn't Megan figuring things out. This was betrayal. Clear, intentional, and deeply rooted. Later that night, I climbed into bed next to her, same as always. She rolled toward me in the dark, resting her hand on my chest. I've missed you lately, she whispered, her breath warm against my neck. I didn't move. I didn't respond. I just stared up at the ceiling, blinking against the sting in my eyes, because I realized something in that moment. She wasn't saying it to me. She was saying it to the man she used to love, the version of me she remembered, the one she didn't think she'd already left behind. But that man was gone. She'd led him slowly. And now, all that was left in this bed was a stranger in the shape of a husband, waiting in silence, wondering how long it would take I didn't confront her. Not that night, not the one after. Not even the day I found a second hidden folder on her computer. This one labeled, personal. There were **TS in there. Text messages. Some of them looked like they'd been saved from her phone, others from his. Maybe he'd sent them to her. Maybe they'd planned for that. I don't know. I just know she kept them, guarded them. Some of the messages made my skin crawl. Still smell like you. Last night was dangerous. I liked it. Can't believe we didn't get caught. Some were time-stamped from nights she'd claimed to be stuck at work. Others matched perfectly with evenings she said she was going to clear her head. She'd been clearing her head in hotel rooms. The worst part? She replied, playfully, longingly, sometimes with photos, nothing explicit, but suggestive enough. A lipstick kiss on the bathroom mirror. A blurry **T of her in bed. Covers down low. Captioned, thinking of you. That was the night I stopped thinking of her as my wife. She hadn't been mine for a long time. But instead of exploding, instead of losing control or packing my things in a rage, I went quiet. Strategic. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want her crocodile tears. I didn't want her scrambling to twist the narrative into something she could stomach. I wanted clarity. So I did what she never expected. I smiled. I laughed when appropriate. I said love you when I left the house. I complimented her hair. I asked about her day. I gave her the perfect cover because I wanted her to get comfortable. And when she got comfortable, she got sloppy. She stopped trying to hide it. Not completely. Not in ways she would have when she still felt guilty. She started coming home even later. Started showering the moment she got in. Claiming she was sweaty from a long day. Once, I walked past the laundry basket and caught a whiff of something foreign. Cologne. Not mine. Not even close. I picked up the blouse it was clinging to and held it for a long moment, my fingers shaking, my throat tightening. She came around the corner then, humming some song like she hadn't just erased the last 6 years of our life together. What are you doing? She asked, almost playfully. Nothing, I said, dropping the blouse back into the pile. Just looking for my sweatshirt. She smiled and walked past me, kissed my cheek, and I let her, because I wasn't looking for explanations anymore. I was building a record. I started making copies of everything. Photos, **TS, logs, dates, receipts, anything that connected the dots. Her work trips weren't work trips. Her meetings were hour-long gaps in her calendar where her phone went silent. The truth was everywhere once I stopped pretending it wasn't. And in the quiet of that knowledge, I started mourning. Not just the loss of her, but the loss of who I was with her. I used to be proud of us. I really did. We weren't flashy. We didn't post about each other every day or do elaborate anniversary trips. But we were solid, or so I thought. We had inside jokes, movie nights, favorite coffee spots, that one playlist we made during our road trip through Oregon. I kept telling myself that version of us was still in there somewhere. But it wasn't. She buried it, slowly and deliberately, under layers of lies and excuses and whispered messages at 2 a.m. And now she was just acting out the shell of a marriage. And I was the audience. The tension between us grew stranger, almost surreal. She started smiling more, oddly enough. Started asking if I wanted to go somewhere this weekend, or do something fun. As if she suddenly remembered I existed. But I saw it for what it was. Panic. She could feel me slipping. Not in confrontation, but in spirit. The space between us wasn't loud. It was hollow. She tried to fill it with surface-level warmth. But you can't fake fire in a burnt-out house. One night, she climbed into bed beside me and whispered, "I've missed you." Her hand brushed against mine. I didn't move, and I didn't say it back. She didn't try again. That was the turning point. After that, she stopped pretending as much. She didn't make excuses when she stayed out late. She didn't text as often when she was gone. She started spending weekends at the gym. Even though I saw no new yoga gear, no post-workout glow, no trace of effort or sweat, what I did see were fresh touch-ups of her lipstick. The one she wore the night of the party. What I smelled was the faint trace of him every time she leaned past me. And what I felt was nothing. Not anger, not heartbreak, just numbness. Like I'd finally bled out every feeling I had for her. I started going through the motions of leaving. Quietly, I opened a private email account. Started researching apartments in a nearby city where I could commute to work. I took a few weekend trips under the excuse of a client retreat and scoped out neighborhoods. I even visited a few furnished studios. Nothing fancy. Just clean, quiet places with light and air and enough distance to make it feel like mine. I found one. Signed the lease on the spot. It was a strange feeling, starting a new life while still technically living the old one. Like living in two timelines at once. One where I was a husband, and one where I was a ghost slipping out the back door. I packed essentials a little at a time. Clothes, chargers, old books she never read. A few photos I cared about. Not of us, just me and friends. Me and my dog from college, memories untouched by her. I kept a duffel bag in the trunk of my car. Ready, just in case. Some mornings, I'd wake up and think, I could leave today, just not come back after work. Just vanish from her world like she vanished from mine. But I didn't. Not yet. There was one more thing I needed. The clarity that came from watching someone finally stop pretending. And sure enough, it came. It was a Thursday. I got home earlier than usual. Her car wasn't in the driveway. Not strange on its own. I stepped inside and saw her gym bag by the door, completely untouched. I walked into the kitchen. The stove was clean. No dishes in the sink. No signs of dinner. Just a note. Post it. Ran into a friend. Grabbing dinner. Don't wait up. Ran into a friend. I don't know why that line hit harder than the messages or the photos or even the late-night whispers from someone who wasn't me. But it did. It was so casually dismissive. So lazy. She didn't even bother to lie convincingly anymore. Because she assumed I wouldn't ask. Because she believed I wouldn't leave. Because I hadn't, yet. That was the night I sat in the kitchen for 2 hours without moving. No music. No TV. Just silence. I thought about the years we spent building a life I thought was real. The anniversaries. The vacations. The plans. All of it now overwritten by someone else's hands on her skin. Someone else's name in her phone. Someone else's reflection in her eyes. And me? I was just the wallpaper in the background of her new life. Useful. present, forgotten. So I made a decision. Not in anger, not in bitterness, just in the calm, clear voice of a man who'd seen enough. I would leave soon, very soon. Not with a bang, not with a fight, not with shouting or slamming doors, but with silence. The same silence she gave me when she thought I wasn't looking. The same silence I lived in while she drifted further away. The kind of silence that says, I know what you did, and you're not worth another word. By the time the leaves started changing, Megan had stopped pretending altogether. At first, it was subtle. Less effort, fewer lies. She no longer offered explanations before she went out. Just left her keys in the bowl and mumbled a vague, see you later. Sometimes not even that. Her absence stopped being an event. It became routine. Like a new rhythm had formed in the house. One where silence filled the spaces we used to occupy together. She started coming home later and later. Sometimes past midnight. Sometimes not at all. There were entire nights where I'd wake up to an empty bed and just know, that she wasn't staying late for work, or catching up with old friends, or falling asleep on someone's couch. She was with him. There was no longer any effort to mask it. The first time she didn't come home, I waited up. Not because I was hoping she'd walk through the door. I already knew she wouldn't. I waited because part of me wanted to see how long it would take her to admit it. At 2:34 a.m. I texted, "You okay?" No reply. At 3:11 a.m. I heard the door open. Softly, like she thought I was asleep. I listened to her steps. Measured, quiet, shoes in hand. The door to the laundry room creaked open. I heard the unmistakable hum of the washing machine start up. She was washing away whatever was left of him. She crept upstairs, the faintest sound of the shower starting behind a closed door. She never came to check if I was awake. And I never asked where she'd been. That became our unspoken agreement. I wouldn't ask, and she wouldn't lie. Not anymore. What's strange is how easy it was to adjust to the distance. At some point, I stopped checking the time. Stopped listening for her car. Stopped flinching every time her phone buzzed. She was just gone. Still physically there, yes. Still wearing my ring. Still making coffee in the same kitchen. Still humming in the bathroom while she did her makeup. But none of it felt connected to me. She existed in parallel. In another life, tethered by a few shared groceries and a mortgage. Once, I came home early and found her in the backyard talking on the phone. She didn't hear me come in. She was laughing, soft, quiet, private laughter. The kind of laugh you save for someone who makes you feel wanted. I stood behind the glass door and listened. She said his name, Tyler, and she said things that confirmed what I already knew. I keep thinking about that last night. You're impossible. Stop. You're distracting me. And then, in a voice so soft I almost missed it, I wish I was with you right now. That was the last straw. Not because I didn't know already. I did. But hearing her say it in that tone in our yard, the same yard where we once slow danced barefoot after painting the fence together, made it real in a way nothing else had. She wanted to be with him, not just physically, emotionally, fully. She had chosen him, again and again. And me? I was just the prop in the life she hadn't figured out how to leave yet. I started noticing how she used me. She still asked me to bring in her dry cleaning. Still texted me grocery lists. Still had me fix the loose door in the guest room. Still reminded me to mail her packages when she forgot. She'd hand me receipts to file. Would say things like, "Hey, babe, can you just sign this form real quick?" Without looking up from her phone. It was transactional now. I was a body to do chores, to keep up appearances, to make sure no one asked too many questions too soon. She wasn't in love. She was buying time. That realization didn't hit like a slap. It didn't make me yell or cry or pack a suitcase. It made me still. Quietly, almost calmly, I let go. I stopped responding to her small talk. I stopped offering to help with errands. I stopped pretending to care when she gave me half-hearted updates about work. I became a shadow in the house she was haunting. One night, I stood at the bathroom mirror, toothbrush in hand, watching my reflection. I didn't recognize myself. There was a weight behind my eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger, not grief, just weariness. The kind that creeps into your bones when you've been holding something broken for too long, afraid to drop it. I thought, this can't be who I am now. I thought, she doesn't even see me. I thought, why am I still here? That night, I opened my laptop and pulled up the lease to my new apartment. The one I'd signed weeks ago but never moved into. I checked the address again. Read the welcome email. Saved the door code to my phone. I could go. At any moment. And yet, I didn't. Not just yet. I needed something final. A signal that there was no hope. No thread left to pull. No reason to stay. That signal came sooner than I expected. It was a Sunday afternoon. I'd gone for a walk and stopped by a bookstore. One of those quiet, dusty places where the air feels like a sigh. I wandered through the aisles aimlessly, *ling time, trying to avoid going home. When I finally got back, her car was in the driveway. I walked in and saw her on the phone. Again. She didn't notice me. She was in the kitchen, pacing in front of the island, barefoot, wine glass on the counter. I stopped in the hallway. She was mid-sentence. No, he doesn't suspect anything. He's been so weird lately. I think he's just tired. Checked out, you know? Silence. A pause. Then she laughed. The kind of laugh that belongs to someone in love. Someone caught up in a story that's thrilling because it's secret. I don't know how much longer I can do this, she said, lowering her voice. It's starting to feel fake. Another pause. Then, no, not with you. With him. Something inside me shattered, but not in the dramatic way you'd expect. It was quiet, surgical, like watching a bridge collapse in slow motion. I backed out of the hallway without making a sound. Went upstairs. Closed the door. Sat on the edge of the bed. She'd made her choice. Spoken it aloud. To him. And now I had mine. Over the next few days, I made the last preparations. I bought boxes. Packed quietly. Labeled nothing. Just essentials. I moved things to my trunk in small loads. I even took down the framed wedding photo in our hallway and replaced it with a print of a lighthouse. She didn't notice. Not once. That Friday, she came home late again. Walked in without saying anything, still dressed up. High heels, makeup freshened. I was in the living room, lights low.